What's going on, guys? Geekin Drinkin back. My name is Eddie.
Steven.
I'm Matt.
And today we're here at Alamo Beer Company.
And even though it's a little rainy out here today, ain't gonna stop us from enjoying some good brew and taking an awesome tour here at Alamo Beer.
So thanks to Alamo Beer Co for inviting us. Cheers, guys.
So y'all ready to check out the brewery?
Hell yeah! What's going on, guys? Geekin Drinkin back. My name is Eddie.
Steven.
I'm Matt.
And we're here sitting down with the Brewmaster of Alamo Brewing Company.
Greg Spickler.
Thanks for joining us today, man. I mean, we're enjoying some awesome Alamo beer. Cheers.
Gross.
And we were lucky enough, for Greg to give us an awesome walk through in his day, the tour of the brewery, and I mean, you guys should check that out. It was
A little bit of the process of what goes on around here at Alamo Beer, but now we're actually sitting with the Brewmaster himself.
Mm-hmm.
So just kind of kick it off. How do you feel that you just been announced Brewmaster here at Alamo Beer?
Feeling good, man. Excited to get things done. Excited to make some great beer.
Awesome.
Can you tell us a little bit about your journey, into becoming Brewmaster? I mean, I know that for a while you kind of went around the country working at different breweries, correct?
Yeah, man. So after college, I went to school to be a chef originally. CIA, Culinary Institute of America, the same one here in San Antonio, but in Hyde Park, New York. I started brewing there actually. Me and my roommates. We were still underage at that point, right? We either go to Canada. Canada's like our Mexico.
Yeah.
So we go to Canada, buy beer, or start making our own dorm rooms and whatnot. And just kind of kept on doing that after I graduated. Traveled the entire country, working at restaurants and a few brew pubs along the way, and kind of putting my ear to the brewery door, if you will. Just trying to learn as much as I could. Feeling that eventually I'd probably make the switch, one day.
Yeah.
And kept on doing that, kept on taking executive chef jobs and with a little hand in brewing wherever I could.
Yeah.
And then I finally opened up my own brew pub up in Maine a while back.
Oh, good,
Wells,
good.
Maine, right? And partnered with a local restaurateur there. And so that was my first, real professional brewing job. Prior to that, I'd built a small little nano system. I was executive chef down at a big game hunting ranch down in South Texas, 10,000 acre ranch. So when I wasn't making salami and jerky, I'd be brewing beer. I kept about 12 taps on for the hunters at all times. So
That's awesome.
I wasn't really professional because, I was the chef there, and it wasn't really even fully legal. It was because we were giving it away and we weren't actually selling anything. So, but yeah, no. So I opened the brewery in Maine, and that was, I was both the chef and the brewer and the salesperson. So I was busy, right?
Yeah, definitely.
But that's kind of how I got started into it. And after Maine, I ended up coming back to Texas, where I'm originally from, and San Antonio, and started back here at Alamo Beer. Came back here, quickly became the lead brewer, and worked here for about 2 years. Took a break, and now I'm back.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. My question, because I know you said you've traveled the country, you work different jobs and everything. In your opinion, I mean, what of all your travels, what state has a pretty good, craft beer? I mean, craft beer game.
Other than Texas.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
obviously.
I got you. Yeah. It's a good question, man. So, the places that I've lived, three of them really stand out, and then I'd have to kind of narrow it down from there. But so I lived in St. Mary, Montana for a little while, and the craft beer scene wasn't explosive then, but people were really digging the Great Northern and the few breweries over there. It seemed like people were really accepting that culture, and that was kind of really cool to see, especially out in the middle of nowhere, because the area I lived, you had to drive a couple hours before you could get into town, but the little place that had their breweries, they were pretty well loved. So that was a lot of fun to see. That was kind of one of the first real experiences I had where I was working as a chef and then kind of like peering into the brewing world. So that's kind of cool. But then I lived in Bend, Oregon for a little while, working for a 10 Barrel Brewing Company. The brewmaster there was Jimmy Safrit, and he came from Deschutes before that, so he was a brewmaster over there. So that was a really cool place where I was working in the kitchen there and kind of trying to make that leap over. And actually they offered me an executive position there to open some new restaurants and do some brewing, and I ended up turning it down to come back to San Antonio. But that place there really showed me how explosive the craft beer scene can be, because even Bend, being a couple hours from Portland, just that town right there had so many great breweries in such a small little town, and the kind of camaraderie that I saw there between the brewers, just the excitement, the turnout for everyone's festivals. Anytime someone threw an event, everybody was there. The place was always packed, and you could just tell people loved their craft beer there, and it was so cool to see. And that's really not much different from when I lived in Maine. The brewery I opened was in Wells, about an hour south of Portland, Maine. But Portland had just as much of that whole brotherly community within the brewers, and the town so much supported their local craft. The people in Maine were kind of like Texas, how we were proud of Texas, right?
Yeah.
Anything Texas, Texans love.
So, considering what you just said right now, that, they really supported their craft beers, how do you feel, do you feel that Texans kind of do that here, or San Antonians do that here as well, that, they really support their craft beers, or you feel that the craft beer, community here is still kind of just building up? And
we're still growing.
We're
still growing. Yeah, there are some diehard fans out there, some great folks who love their craft beer, and we're thankful for those folks here in San Antonio. But
you got
that's right,
here.
that's right, man. Cheers to that.
Yeah,
But no, man, in San Antonio we got a long way to go. Even Austin and Houston, they seem to kind of rally around their breweries a little bit more, but their brewing scene's a little bit older than ours. We're a little bit younger. Alamo's been around for a while, of course. We had Frio and back in the day. Joey at Blue Star's been kicking butt for a long time. But still, on the whole, our craft beer community is a little bit young here. So I don't see quite as much of just the community support for their breweries. But I don't think that's far away. San Antonio, our culinary scene is growing.
Definitely.
We're growing just as a city itself and population-wise, so I think a lot of those things are going to come. And as brewers in San Antonio, as we continue to get better and hone our craft, hopefully along the public comes along with it and continues to support us, and we growing together, right?
Yeah. So going off that, I know we touched on it a little bit a little while ago during the tour, but how would you describe the relationship with your brewery, Alamo, and other local breweries? Because on our show so far we've had Busted Sando, Freetail, and Ranger Creek, all have shown their support for us, and we've given our support for them. Now we can include Alamo with that, and we love our San Antonio breweries. How's the love between the breweries itself?
I think San Antonio, we've done a great job of creating that community within the brewers themselves. I was telling you earlier, we have a once a month meeting where all the brewers get together. We rotate breweries. The brewery gives free beer and food to all the brewers, and we'll all get together, talk a little bit of business,
Drink a
quickly
little more
after,
beer.
get on to the real important business of drinking and hanging out together.
That's
and,
what it's all about.
Forming that those relationships and those bonds, right? So, I think San Antonio's done a really good job of that, and and hopefully that culture continues to spill over onto the community
for sure.
itself. The consumer base. So,
I mean, to me, that's what the craft beer industry is all about. Like people at the first thought of it, beer. Oh, it's just getting drunk. No, it's not just getting drunk. It's it's a culture. It's it's a community. It's an environment, a healthy environment to be a part of. It's not. To me, it's an art form of creating craft beer.
And it's also about appreciation of actually good, tasty beer.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's so much brews out there, so many even domestic big brewery companies, but a lot of the little microbrews, how do you feel like those are gonna overcome some of those obstacles as well?
The smaller breweries overcoming.
I mean, in the local areas for themselves, not as a whole. Obviously, we appreciate what we have here in San Antonio, but we're not expecting it to be well known somewhere.
Right.
Somewhere else.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't quite understand the question.
It's all good.
I mean, just saying, like, okay, so like. I know I've gone to places where, when 54th Street first opened for me, they had a lot of good craft beers, whether they be from, here in Texas or, some out of state. One of the big known ones was Samuel Adams.
Right.
For instance. Well, in certain areas in San Antonio, they don't really see those craft beers. They just see, like, oh, I want this,
Right.
Not to throw a name, but it's a big name brand that's out there, that's here.
So I get your saying right now. That's something that San Antonio is going to slowly evolve with. We have a lot of mom and pop restaurants here, but not all those mom and pop restaurants have a big tap wall.
Yeah.
The thing about most places you go and you drink a beer at, especially that have multiple taps, unless it's like a Big Hops, Growler Exchange kind of small place, and it's probably going to be a chain somewhere, right? And a casual restaurant that maybe have a few taps on, and a lot of those guys will continue to support the people that are supporting them, right? Some of the bigger beers and those bigger distributors can pay to support some of those chains, so they'll continue to have those. But hopefully we can see some of these other restaurants and maybe more independent restaurants and bars kind of really put their backyard first, right? And
Yes.
Yeah.
the people that are right here, the beers that's right here, and continue to grow that, because that's where it starts. And if they're keeping that money right here in our backyard, if they're keeping that community, building that, that's going to end up helping everybody out in the long run, and just building that culture here. As the market gets bigger and there are more and more breweries popping up, it's going to start switching from big places like Alamo and even Freetail, so you're going to start seeing more of the small little pubs.
Yes.
Like Joey's originally, or like Mad Pecker, or Weathered Souls, Kunstler. Those small little places, you're going to start seeing more and more of those, and most likely those guys will never end up being big, regional breweries, or as big as Alamo is. And I'm not saying they can't, but just the trend is going to be smaller batches, smaller distribution, and neighborhood breweries drinking around the corner kind of deal. Supporting what's in your neighborhood, and that's kind of even the big cities like Denver and places like that. You just see little breweries popping up in every single neighborhood. And it's is it becoming saturated, or are people just drinking a little bit closer to home?
Yeah. I've been to Colorado Springs, and that was like for my wife and I, that was like the one thing we were like, okay, where's the closest local brewery for us? That makes, or
Google Maps pop up.
even but at when we went to Lake Tahoe, we did the same thing. Or like, what's the closest one to us? And that was like kind of like spotted. I mean, they have them, but it was like real spotted. So, but it was real cool to see that that the they had that support there, and that a lot of the big companies didn't have the shelf space that certain places have here in our stores.
Right.
So-
Right. And you'll see that shifting more as the consumer base starts to buy more local.
Yeah.
So, I remember 10 years ago, I would still go to HEB and look for the biggest IPA from like Boulevard or Breckenridge or something like that, or I'd be buying beer that came 3-4 states away.
Yeah.
Buying beer from Deschutes, that came from Oregon. And how long does it take to get that beer from Oregon down to Texas and on the shelf from the day it was packaged, right?
Yeah.
Probably quite a while. And if you're buying an IPA, it may be a few weeks, a month from the time it was actually put in that bottle to the time it hits your HEB shelf. Hopefully a few weeks.
And does that affect
Big
the
time.
general taste? It does.
It does. My opinion on IPAs is they're better yesterday. Right?
I like that.
So, from the moment they put it in that bottle, it's never going to be better than it was that moment, just because those aromas are so volatile.
Yeah.
And they just start deteriorating the minute they put it in the
To
bottle.
me,
It's just
I
like a
love
soda. You
IPAs
open
so
it,
much.
it gets after a while, it gets kind of stale.
Right,
It's the same thing.
But the funny thing is, IPAs, the original thought behind them was the hops is a preservative, so we're going to hop it, and it'll last on the ship from wherever, India to wherever, right?
Yeah.
So yes, it does make a beer last longer. It does preserve a beer longer, but when you're looking for like a really hoppy, juicy
Just
IPA,
the freshest taste in the world.
yeah, it's never going to be better than yesterday.
Yeah. I mean, going back, to, the community, supporting its local breweries. I mean, come on, guys, support the local breweries. We love San Antonio breweries here. I feel Alamo is kind of like up there as far as building a name for itself. And recently, Alamo has celebrated its 15-year anniversary of Golden Ale.
That's right.
How do you feel about that?
That's awesome, man. For the first, I'd say, 10 plus years of Alamo Golden Ale's existence, it was contracted out of Real Ale in Blanco, and Eugene went around with his minivan, rolling kegs out and selling it by hand.
That's how you do it.
So, that's awesome that he was able to get to this point, put that hard work himself. He wasn't the one brewing it, and that wasn't his specialty, but, he had the know-how to go out there and build the brand and make it happen and put someone in place who could actually do it, well. So we're super excited now to be turning 15, this is maybe our 4th year at this location, our own facility, making our own product, and we've expanded from the one beer to 6 year-round offerings. And
Man, and I wish I would have brought it with me, but when I started drinking, Texas beers, I started off with kind of another no-name brand, but when I first saw Alamo on the scene, I was like, oh, you know what, that's the San Antonio Brew, I'm gonna buy that one. It was the old school logo,
It's like
orange
a-
with the little cannons,
yeah.
And I wish I would have brought that here, kind of just put it there and just be like, you know what, this is what it used to be, and now
Yeah,
here we
this
are.
is- How
Yeah.
many-
That would have been cool.
yeah,
But,
it's grown a lot,
it
man.
is what it is. But I mean, I loved Alamo. Pretty much since when it started off like that, and I know it's kind of also been around a little longer than that because I think going back, if you want to go back into history, back in the days, Alamo Beer or Alamo Brewing was kind of around, and then it just kind of
So pre-prohibition,
yes,
Alamo Beer was a label owned by Lone Star,
okay,
and that was a amber. It may have been an amber ale, amber lager. It was an amber beer. It was an amber lager. It was a traditional style lager, Vienna style lager, called Alamo Beer. And then after Prohibition, they didn't use the beer anymore because after Prohibition, they started really focusing on really light beers around that same time. It was also when they kind of were getting a little bit better at water chemistry and understanding what really goes into making a light beer and making it consistent. Because back then, it was a little bit easier. It still is today, but it's easier to make a dark beer or even an amber beer, because it hides imperfections, and you don't have to really manipulate the water a lot, because there's actually some buffering that goes on with some of those darker malts. So just there wasn't a great understanding of a super light beer before Prohibition, and that's kind of around the time that we started getting better understanding of it. So when Prohibition was over, they just hit the ground running with the light beer, and then that's what took off. And so they never really looked back to some of those older recipes that they had before, and because an amber and pale beer, or maybe a little bit darker beers were the norm back then, because they were easier to make, consistent, and they were using really high quality grains back in the day before Prohibition. We would actually, in Texas, we were importing a lot of malt from Germany, because we had a lot of German brewers down here. So we're using very high quality stuff back then, and then after Prohibition, it kind of took that turn to like the American lager. We're going to make it light, and we figured out the light thing, and we're just going to make it lighter and lighter and lighter, and that's just where it went. And then now, everything comes back around.
Yeah, get
a
little darker, a little darker,
a little darker, a little more variety, right? And so it's a good thing. And believe it or not, before Prohibition, there was a lot more breweries, and there was even back then a little bit more of that neighborhood. Backyard kind of, there's a neighborhood brewery everywhere kind of deal. And it's taken us a long time to kind of get back to that.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. So I mean, so given that conversation, of Golden Ale reaching its 15-year anniversary, what can you shine some light on the future of Alamo Brewery and what's to come?
All right, yeah. So we've got a lot going on here. Working on some rebranding actually at the moment. But biggest thing, we're going to be releasing some light beer. We really kind of see that where the market's shifting to at the moment, and San Antonians love their light beer. It's hot.
They do. Yeah.
It's 150 degrees outside every day, even in the wintertime. And we want something refreshing, easy to drink, goes down like water, but has a little bit of alcohol to it. So it is what it is.
And your summer ale is a great I guess you can say a taste of that. The summer ale.
Summer ale is real delicious,
good.
real
Thank
tasty,
you.
real crisp. So
But our new light should really fit that kind of point where most craft beer is kind of lacking, and bridging that gap between what everyone really drinks and the masses really drink, but putting a little craft spin on it and putting out a nice quality product.
So going into light beer, do you feel that Alamo kind of gets a little criticism for that, or because they're like, for those craft beer enthusiasts,
Sure.
it's like, oh, why are you gonna make a light beer? This is craft beer. You're Alamo Beer.
Well, to that we have a whole list of other things that we're going to be working on this next year. In the summertime, I'm going to put out a raspberry Berliner. Pretty soon, I'll be working on a double imperial oatmeal stout, coffee stout.
There you go.
Barrel aged. Probably going to be using some Ranger Creek whiskey barrels. I used to help them do a little distillation, so good relations with those guys.
And we just recently took a
Yeah.
tour
Yeah,
of
we
Ranger
took a
Creek,
tour,
so
yeah.
Good
hey,
friends with TJ and Holland over there. Love those guys.
Colonel Mag, we love you too.
That was a good guy. So we got some really cool stuff, and we're going to be going outside the box of what Alamo's been traditionally known for. We're still going to stick towards our traditional German beers. We're not going to abandon that by any means, but we're throwing in some of the other stuff that you may have not seen from us before.
Okay.
Like those barrel-aged beers and some of those lighter sours, and
I love
really just trying to
sours.
hit different markets. Very soon here, we're going to be working on a small batch series, so every single week we'll have a release of a different beer in the beer hall only. It'll only be one keg, but it's gone, it's gone. It'll be something kind of fun for our customer base to come over here and see something different, taste it, say, hey, this should be our next year-round beer, or,
Yeah, man. So speaking about crafts and everything. I mean, craft beer is not the only thing that you're working on. San Antonio craft soda. Can you give us some little insight on that?
Yes, sir. So I'm a local beekeeper in the area, do some commercial beekeeping. So I'm excited to be using our honey in different outlets here, right? So San Antonio doesn't have a craft soda at the moment. Of course, we have some big sodas, Big Red and stuff like that. Dr. Pepper's not too far away, so there's a lot of love for local San Antonio soda, but there's nothing right now that's in that kind of craft sector.
Yeah,
So we thought it was a great opportunity to make a local craft soda. And then, what could really tie it in better than using some local ingredients? So we started off with honey from my Wine and Grow Provisions company. We're adding in other regional ingredients, such as our cola has South Texas Valley citrus in it, using Mexican raw sugar in addition to the honey. Our root beer, we're looking into putting some mesquite bean into, right? So the actual pods themselves, not the smoke. The mesquite pod has a lot of great sugars in it, so it's a really cool, complex flavor. So we're really trying to just hit it home with some local, regional flavors here to really make that product unique to here, right? Give it a sense of place.
Oh, that would be awesome.
So
So we definitely look forward to that. I mean, for us, we can speak for us that Big Red is that hangover soda. So if anybody could top that, I believe that that San Antonio craft soda can
Definitely bring that up to it.
That's right, man. Yeah. Don't worry, we will have the barbacoa soda right there, man.
We'll make
That's what it is. That's all about.
Watch out, Tommies. So given the nature of the show, we geek, we've drank. Let's talk about some movies.
All right.
You mentioned that that your family, your daughters, they love Marvel movies.
Superhero movies.
Given us, we love our Marvel, our superhero movies.
Well, I got Star Wars today.
Yeah, you got Star Wars, and you got
DC. I got you, man. I got you.
Hey, there you go. What's the last superhero movie that you saw, and what's the one that you loved?
The last one that we saw was Avengers: Infinity War. My daughters love the Avengers, but the one they probably liked the most before that was Thor Ragnarok.
There you go.
My daughter loves the soundtrack. She dances around every time it's on. But more than that, she loves the Hulk. Hulk smash, man. Hulk smash.
There you go, man.
Hulk smash. If it's got Hulk in it, like it's my kids love it.
Awesome, man.
So
Don't smash.
Yeah, there you go. We love anybody who loves to smash. We love anybody who loves the Avengers, any type of superhero movie. But Greg, we want to thank you so much, for giving us a walkthrough of your day to day. Insight into your life, your journey, everything. It's been so awesome. We love Alamo Brewery. We love the beers. We love the taste, and we cannot wait to taste your new soda. So thank you so much.
Thank you all for coming out,
awesome,
guys.
man.
I've enjoyed it.
And for Geekin Drinkin, my name is Eddie.
Steven?
Matt?
And Prost.
Right. Bro.